أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bringing us together on this session. And we continue with the Surah Baqarah. What we have come, how far we've come up till now is last week we finished up to verse 177. And so far I've summarized to you the topics that are covered. And just to give you an example, we've covered the origins of humankind, of humanity, the origin story of Adam, the ontology or the background or the origination of humanity, and we've discussed that. And we've also discussed the leading nation historically, and how that leading nation has performed. In the Quran, there is a case study of a leading nation, the Bani Israel, and we discussed that. Not discussed it, we sought to read the Quran's explanation or layout of this phenomenon. Then also we looked at the players in the social struggle between right and wrong. And last week we discussed a few. Let me just quickly get you to last week's main topics. Anyway, we'll get there. So this week we're going to more or less this week, and then there'll be another session, and then we would have had Surah Baqarah, the entire idea of what Surah Baqarah entails. And what you will find is, after reading or after trying to understand the entire Surah Baqarah, is you will see the methodology that the Quran uses. It does not take one topic and exhaust it. However, it actually does a recurring treatment of these topics. So this week, again, a few topics, but let us first proceed with the reading of some of the verses, and then I will take you through quite interesting, a few very interesting points that come up. But let us look at the verse of the Quran. So what I'll do is I'll put that up for us. And then we will recite from Surah 178. You're very welcome to join along or to recite on your own. The meaning here that you see is my reading. So this is not Yusuf Ali. This is not, a recognized translation. This is what I offer as my meaning. I take our own, the background that I come from, the experiences that I have been through, and I take the Arabic and I attach my meaning. So you can follow the meaning here also if you want to. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم القصاص في القتلى الحر بالحر والعبد بالعبد والأنثى بالأنثى فمن عفي له من أخيه شيء فاتباع بالمعروف وأداء إليه بإحسان ذلك تخفيف من ربكم ورحمة فمن اعتدى بعد ذلك فله عذاب أليم. ولكم في القصاص حياة يا أولي الألباب لعلكم تتقون. كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا وصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين من بدله بعدما سمعه فإنما إثمه على الذين يبدلون إن الله سميع عليم فمن خاف من موص جنفا أو إثما فأصلح بينهم فلا إثم عليه إن الله غفور رحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم لعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون أحل لكم الليلة صيام الرفث إلى نسائكم هن لباس لكم وأنتم لباس لهن علم الله أنكم كنتم تختنون أنفسكم فتاب عليكم وعفى عنكم فالآن باشروهن وابتغوا ما كتب الله لكم وكلوا واشربوا حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر ثم أتموا الصيام إلى الليل ولا تباشروهن وأنتم عاكفون في المساجد تلك حدود الله فلا تقربوها كذلك يبين الله آيات للناس لعلهم يتقون يسألون عن الأهلة قل هي مواقيت الناس والحج وليس البر بأن تأتوا البيوت من ظهورها ولكن البر من اتقى وأوتوا البيوت من أبوابها واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون وقاتلوا في سبيل الله الذين يقاتلونكم ولا تعتدوا إن الله لا يحب المعتدين وَقَتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقَفْتُمُوهُمْ وَأَخْرِجُوهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَخْرَجُوكُمْ وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ وَلَا تُقَاتِلُوهُمْ عِنْدَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ حَتَّى يُقَاتِلُوكُمْ فِيهَا فَإِنْ قَاتِلُوكُمْ فَاقْتُلُوهُمْ كَذَلِكَ جَزَاءُ الْكَافِرِينَ. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. I think let us move on to the let us move on to the discussion. And let me just quickly outline for you what we are covering in this particular section of the Quran. Full screen. So what we have here in this particular section of the Quran, and we are dealing with verses 188 to 219. There are 286 or 88 verses in this Surah Baqarah. So there's like this, and then we'll have another last section. And then we'll do something else maybe after that. Maybe, you can decide what format we want to do after that. But let me just summarize for you. If you read verses 188 to 219 of Surah Baqarah, you will encounter the following topics. First of all, we will discuss the idea, the Quran presents the idea of qisas, which is the law of equivalence in the case where somebody causes a death. So there's that legal issue is discussed. What happens when somebody is responsible for taking somebody else's life. Then wasiyah is another topic that is covered, verses 180, 181, 182. I'm not going to go in detail. You're very welcome to study these topics. But wasiyah covers the idea of making a bequest before you die and assigning or allocating some of your wealth to various persons or entities. So wasiyah is covered in 3 verses. Then in Surah Baqarah, then extensively we find fasting is covered, and you've just heard me reading some of those verses now. So the fasting is explained and why it is, and what are the, some of the ideas around fasting. It's not like exhaustively covered in this chapter. It does get some coverage in other chapters again, but some of the ideas around fasting are covered here. Very importantly and quite extensively, this surah deals with military combat from 190 to 194, then 216 to 218, and also 244 and 245 deals with military combat. And it deals with some of the basic rules of engaging the enemy in war. So it, for example, will explain under what conditions you may engage in military warfare, what you may not, what the boundaries are, the limits are when engaged in conflict, when to stop the conflict, etc., etc. In this chapter also is covered Hajj. So some of the ideas around Hajj. Then extensively also, but not yet later on, the idea of charity. Then wine and gambling is covered here. The famous verse that says that they ask you concerning wine and gambling, and the harm is greater than the benefit, that verse. And then the one idea that I want to expand on a bit tonight, maybe spend another, Assalamu alaikum, that I want to spend on a bit, Assalamu Alaikum. The one idea I want to expand on a bit is the idea of the Quranic dialectic. Now, the Quranic dialectic is maybe highfalutin or high words, but I really want to bring you in here because to understand the Quran, we need to understand what is this concept of this dialectic. Now, a dialectic is a word that was introduced maybe in the early 1800s. And it refers, it's a view of the world. It's a way of understanding conflict in the world. And I want to first maybe just show you, there were two very important views on this concept of a dialectic. There's the Hegelian concept of a dialectic and what we call Marxist dialectic materialism. And so I know maybe to many of you this still sounds like Greek. It will maybe become a little bit clearer just now. Let me continue. So according to Hegel, the entire story of the world, the way human society functions, and in fact, broader than human society, but especially human society, is that human society is not is in a state of being. And the word being means it is not there cast in concrete and a finished product. Human society and the world is actually in the process of being made. It is, he uses the word, it is becoming. It is in a state of flux. And what is happening is that every day, every moment, in every moment of time, every human being and every group of human beings and every society is at conflict at various points. And those conflicts entail a thesis. It entails people who advance a particular idea, and it involves people who oppose that particular idea. So it's a thesis, it's an antithesis or an antithesis. And that two conflictual positions result in arguments, in conflict in society. It is where human beings then lock horns, as they say. But the outcome of Hegelian the dialectic is that the outcome is that there is a synthesis. So there is a point of agreement between the thesis and the antithesis where they construct a new thesis. And that new thesis is then the new agreed upon idea. So that then becomes the new thesis, but it doesn't stop there, because once you have a new thesis, then that thesis will be challenged again. So that was Hegel. What Marxist dialectical material, I'm not going to go so long, this is the only slide on this. I want to bring it to the Quran as soon as possible. But what Marxist dialectical materialism uses the dialectic of Hegel, it uses that perpetual conflict and it imposes it, or it superimposes it on the history of humanity. And it starts right there by unorganized society, and it ends by proletarian rule, and which is, according to Marx, the ideal society. So, according to Marx, society started with a singular organism. It evolved into complex organisms. It evolved eventually into human beings. Human beings then evolved into societies as an unorganized society. Those societies then were at conflict and they developed feudal societies, and those feudal societies were challenged and they became capitalist societies, and those capitalist societies were challenged and they became socialist societies, and those socialist societies eventually became a communist society. So according to Marx, the history of history is a history of economic conflict. And it is an evolving history that starts from simple human society to what Marx regarded as the most complex society, which is the dictatorship of the proletariat. So the Quran also offers a dialectic, and I'm going to then put this sort of thinking to you so that you can, maybe it will help us to understand the Quran better. So the Quran does not confine itself to a materialist dialectic, because Marx's dialectic is materialist. It is about the haves and the have-nots. And according to Marx, the entire history of humanity is for the have-nots to advance and to one day become a sort of an egalitarian society where there's no have-nots and where everyone is on a par. So the inequality and the oppression and economic oppression is eliminated. However, the Quranic dialectic is one that transcends. It goes beyond an economic dialectic. In Islam, the division of wealth is only one aspect of the greater dialectic. In Islam, we have what is called a truth versus falsehood dialectic. We have a justice versus injustice dialectic. We have a harmony versus chaos dialectic. And we have a nature versus perversion dialectic. All of these and more. So we have a set of binaries which the Quran establishes. And the haves and the have-nots is but one of the greater Quranic dialectic. And so when we read the Quran, we will constantly experience the A versus B, A versus B. So you will constantly hear the mu'min versus the kafir. The word mu'min, which I translate here not as a believer simply, but as an affirmer, somebody who affirms truth. And a kafir, somebody who obscures, somebody who stops, somebody who interferes with truth. Right? You get compassion versus indifference, also as another dialectic. So let us quickly go to the let us quickly go to some of the verses, and it will be very interesting now to just see some of those verses again that deal with that, the way we can identify that dialectic. And we will proceed with the discussion if I'm just now. So Surah right. So I'm going to take you to where you can clearly, because this Surah Baqarah deals with a lot of fiqh issues, and okay, fiqh issues like Hajj and fasting and so on, that here you can see. Right, that is all Salah, Hajj, and so on. All right, but now we come to this. Now we come to this. Here we go. Here comes the dialectic now. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَيُشْهِدُ اللَّهُ عَلَى مَا فِي قَلْبِهِ وَهُوَ أَلَدُّ الْخِصَامِ. So here you will now identify the conflict being expressed in the words of the Quran. Amongst people is he who talk whose talk you will find impressive in this world, and he takes God for a witness to what is in his heart, while he's actually the harshest adversary, right? So now we are seeing the tension. The verses are raising this tension between those who talk a good talk, but they are not really advancing the good cause. Behind your back, he strives to corrupt the world and to destroy crops and cattle, while God does not approve of corruption. So we are talking about harmony, preservation, mercy, and then you have those forces who are corrupting and destroying and abusing. When it is said to him, be mindful of Allah, he is overcome by an evil sense of grandeur. Hellfire is his rightful place, an evil resting place. Then there is amongst people the one who trades his personal needs and desires to win God's satisfaction. God is full of affection for his devotee. Here we go to another concept, the one who trades his personal needs and desires. So he subdues his personal needs and desires to win Allah's satisfaction, as opposed to those who privilege his own needs and desires and who places that above Allah's satisfaction. To those who made the endorsement, or those who, the mu'mineen, undertake your compliance with absolute commitment and imitate not the ways of shaitan, for he is a definite enemy to you. If you backslide after receiving clear proofs, then be aware that Allah is a mighty judge. Ask the people of Israel how often we send them clear directions. Whoever exchanges Allah's advantage after gaining, very Allah will be harsh with punishment. So listen, to summarize what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say to you is that the Quran covers a bunch of fiqh issues. It covers a whole lot of straightforward legal issues. For example, qisas, what if you accidentally cause somebody's death? But interdispersed in between the Quran and coming through within the passages, and not always clearly ascribable to one or the other aspect of fiqh, is this background struggle that is happening between two sides. The side of selfishness, the side of disharmony, the side of indifference, and the side of compassion, the side of justice, the side of the oppressed. And so clearly, if you read the Quran and you cannot see that, then you haven't read the Quran. You know, if you open the Quran at any place, you will see that those two verses, A versus B, playing itself out. And it is a social struggle. So the Quran is not a book that you can say is a book of pure, you know, like some other holy books, that is a book that is fairy tales, or it's a book that forces you into action, or forces you to take a stand. There's no neutral stance. You have to take a stand. So I will summarize, I will end there, and I think what I've been trying to offer you is Surah Baqarah. We've just covered up to verse, I think, 213 this week. And we'll maybe just, you know, the next lot will be sort of, we will close, we will do the final set of verses in Surah Baqarah. If there's any person that saw anything here that you'd like to raise, maybe if you if there's any idea that emerged here that you saw, even in front of you, if you have the Quran, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Somebody's mic is on. Let me see. Okay. As if there's anyone that would like to contribute. So if somebody says to me that there's no politics in Islam, you know, then they obviously have not read the Quran, because sort of half of the Quran is about people fighting against the government. of their time, whether the government is Fir'aun, whether the government is the people of Lut, whether the government is the rich people of Nuh, whether the government is the Quraysh. So half of the Quran, 80% of the Quran is about people fighting against the government. And maybe it's the government of 1400 years ago, but nonetheless. And if you live today and you say there's no politics, then I think you've got the wrong book, the wrong Quran. Any questions? Bismillah. Okay, just speak loudly.
I don't know if the people's going to hear me on the mic from here.
Just take that mic.
There's two different like perspectives of like Daddy showed the dialectics there. Is there one that kind of encompasses what the Quran, or is there one that shows like what the Quran is, or like Daddy showed that there's the one and then there's the Marxist, the other dialectic one. Is there one that shows what the Quran is? Is there something that's like the Quran's one?
Okay.
Like a modern study of that? Or
you know, at the dialectic or the what is another word for a dialectic? The conflict or the historical conflict is simply in the Quran referred to as the mu'min and the kafir. So the word mu'min means to affirm, to be at ease, to be comfortable with, to condone, to agree to submit. That is the word mu'min. And the word kafir means to reject, to rebel, to obstruct, to interfere. So we've used these terms as in a very superficial way. But if we want to understand the history or the story of mankind, it is the battle between the mu'minin and the kuffar. And it is those who want to uphold, want to defend, want to advance good, truth, beauty, harmony, nature, justice, versus those who want to obstruct harmony, nature, justice, beauty. And there's many, many, many examples. Like for example, today you find the gender, the third, what do you call it, feminist third wave, whatever, third feminism, or the new gender movement. It's very topical, but it is absolutely at loggerheads with basic science, because it denies the idea of biological differences between human beings. It actually assumes, it denies the existence of the sexes, male and female. It used to be about the dispute about the genders, because gender is can be regarded as a social construct. Like there's a difference between gender and sex. Sex is a biological idea. It's it's a hard biology. I'm not going to pose as an expert, but I do know enough to know what is nonsense. And so to say that there are more than one gender might hold some credence, because gender is it is how we are socialized in the real world. You know, I am brought up as a boy, I'm brought up as a girl, so I could acquire boy or girl style. But to say that there's not even two sexes now, you've actually denied biology. And so when we say that the Quran defends nature, then we must defend that there are two. When the Quran clearly, explicitly spells it out, that there are two sexes, male and female. So that's one example, but there are countless other examples. For example, the idea of generosity. Generosity is something which the Quran does not impose an economic system, but it does impose a redistribution of wealth through many, many different ways. For example, through charity, through zakah, through manumission, through whatever other ways. Okay. Bismillah. Ini. We look, the topic is a little bit on the heavy side, but we didn't speak about the fasting because I'm sure you've already heard all the fasting verses and all the Hajj verses. So I'm not going to go into those verses, that I will leave to you.
Assalamualaikum Kak Anwar.
Waalaikumsalam. Kamil, Ufa.
Alhamdulillah Kak Anwar.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Bismillah.
Kak Anwar, the material you have, is it possible if you can share the material that you have? Because like you said, the topic is a bit on the heavy side. So for me, I need to read it a few times to grasp.
Yeah.
Understand. Yeah. If you have material, can you maybe just share it with the group?
Okay, no problem. But we don't have to ask topics, the heavy topic also, any other point that you want to raise from these verses. But I understand what you're saying, Kamil. The point that we're trying to make also while I'm waiting is that, socialism or communism is a very restricted worldview. It is a worldview that sees human beings as materialistic creatures. It sees our only objective is to flourish materially, to acquire or to make material acquisitions. So the worker must become like the boss, eventually. That is our dream in terms of a socialist vision. In Islam, we go beyond the materialistic vision. And we see human beings not only as a materialistic creature, but we see a human being as an emotional creature, as a spiritual creature, as a material creature as well. But for us, emancipation or liberation is to flourish in more than one domain.
Assalamualaikum Anwar.
Alaikum salam. Ufa.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Amin. I just want to commend you on this topic because you could see from the time of Abraham how the people that was only looking for wealth and for power, those people were the people always were the people on the untruth side. They were on the truth side, but they were munafiqs. They were using the right path for their own benefit. And we can see from time of Abraham, it was that the people that was on the correct side were always the people that stand only for submit their will to Allah, nothing else, just submitting their will to Allah. And then those people who are using faith or their religion for their own benefit, they were always the first people that you said to struggle against. Except those who are, you know the complete enemy, but the complete enemy was not the people they had to fight. They had to fight first the munafiqeen. Am I right on that?
Yes, correct. I wish what we would have discovered, those of you who were part of this reading of the Quran, what you should have discovered until now is that just because somebody says, I love Allah, my name is Muhammad, I love Islam, that does not make him on the right side of history. Because countless characters like the Khalik said now, since the time of Ibrahim came and assumed that they were on the right side of history, and they were actually of those who subverted and opposed. So any prophet is part of the unfolding story of mankind. Where will it end? You know, if we study mankind, then have we made strides? Absolutely we have. You know, mankind is not static. We cannot argue that mankind has been retrogressive in the past 3,000, 4,000 years. There's been a gradual forward movement in many aspects. Unfortunately, you know, goodness have grown, but evil has also become more powerful. And so we face a time when evil is now manifested in mega global entities that are richer than countries. You know, if you look at the wealth in one corporation, like, for example, just take General Electric, or General Motors, who has a bigger wealth than half of the world's countries. So, and the way they make their money is by exporting helicopters, material for war. And these wars are being committed or perpetrated unjustly against the poorest of the poor in Yemen and in Afghanistan and in Syria, where these high-tech General Electric equipment, machinery, what they call the military industrial complex, is enriching people. You know, the whole medical pharmaceutical complex, another multi-billion dollar and global force based on keeping people sick and not on making the world healthier. You know, selling tablets and destroying humanity, basically. Not really improving humanity through what they're doing. So I think the struggle continues. However, the struggle is fought every time at a more greater and a more grand scale. And today we face the struggle at probably its grandest scale. You know, in the time of the Nabi, you had 300 guys fighting 1,000 guys in a desert. Today we are 7.5 billion people split between those who are the zombies and those who are awake and who are alert to their role. And so the battle has just become more on a grand scale. But the Quranic core ideas are the same. You know, maybe while we're waiting, please just shout if you've got a question. You know, the Quran is not a book of politics alone. The Quran is at many places a book of deep spiritual sensitivity. And many times, if we're going to proceed towards Surah Juz Amma, maybe after we have completed Surah Baqarah, maybe we should hop to Juz Amma, which is a deeply spiritual, which is a section of the Quran that again refers to the inner battle, because the initial surahs of the Quran refers to the outer battle. It speaks about war on the battlefield, whereas Juz Amma speaks about the internal conflict. It is refining your character, your akhlaq, your self-discipline. And so I don't want us to almost think that, you know what, the Quran, I'm just making the Quran a whole political. No, I'm not making the Quran anything. I'm trying to draw what I'm seeing there. But at another part of the Quran, you might draw out more spiritual vibes from the Quran. Surah Juz Amma, definitely the vibes are very political. If Allah says to you, some people say they're with you, but not with you, they were the enemy and you must make war. I can't make that something else except politics. Bismillah. Yeah, just take the mic.
Assalamualaikum everyone. It's Khadir speaking. Uncle Anna, I wanted to know, this has been like a thing that's been playing on my mind a lot. If you look at our family is so blessed to have so much elderly figures that are strong in their, like Uncle Anna says, they affirm, they're strong in their belief, like Uncle Anna, for example, my grandfather, Uncle Rastam, Uncle Rashid. And I think it's only logical for the younger generation to feel like, how do we fit in this picture? Because like my brother-in-law Khalid was telling us, we're so lucky, our family, our Sheikh family, so lucky to have so many elderly figures still in our lives. And I think from the passing of Mum, it actually made me feel like, who's going to be the next person that will be strong in the youth, for example, like me, Amir, all of our cousins and things like that. It's been playing on my mind, like, how do we start that uprising, to become the person that's going to question the norm? Because as we see in today's society, people are becoming, we're sleeping, and it's most prominent in the youth of today. We're not showing our thoughts. We're not being against what is wrong. So I wanted to know, how do we fit into this picture of the broader picture of Islam? How do we contribute to this? Because it's so difficult. Like for me as a person, it's very difficult to become that figure. So I want to know, how did Uncle Anwar and the bigger figures in our family start to stand out, start to have a voice, a strong voice as to what is right and what is wrong, and stand on what you believe, no matter who comes into the picture, who says no, you're wrong, but you know that you're fighting for the right side. So I wanted to know, that's basically my question.
I think I should open that question and not answer it. If I could ask anyone to shed light on that question, please shout out. I instinctively, I never want you to think as young people that there's a full-time job out there. You must go and make videos and you must talk politics and you must be a radical. But however, I see it as, because we had a second-hand furniture shop, and I had to go and open the shop every day, and I had to carry furniture and whatever, go to auction. So the thing is not how do you change your life to something else, but how do you bring the Quran into your daily affairs. So let's say, and please people interrupt me, but let's say you're a student, you're at campus, you're in a classroom, and then you amongst your friends, and then you are out somewhere. I think the idea is to find opportunities where you see the direction or what you are witnessing is not falling right, it's falling wrong, and to make yourself felt, to make your feeling or your idea felt in that situation. You know, many of you have been in this situation. You yourself, Khadir, you faced a situation where there was a division or a sort of a question mark around madhabs and so on. And you made yourself felt in that situation. You had enough courage to put your stand across. And I mean, maybe you shouldn't underestimate what you've done already, and maybe what you will still be called. That's one example. You know, maybe you were faced with somebody that offered you a tuck lolly or something, and you took a stand at that moment, and you defended nature, health, all the good things of the Quran. So there you have become an instrument of Allah and of the Quran in that moment. So I'm not saying we must all become specialists in the Quran. I'm saying you need to understand the Quran so that you can have the right judgment in the real world. And the Quran is easy. Like what? This is what we're doing now. We're reading it, and so that I can shape your judgment when you meet the real world, when you encounter the real world. But there's Harun, there's Zainab, there's whoever else, businessmen, students, workers. There's a lot of professionals in our family. There's a lot of teachers in our family. You have every day, you are presented with X opportunities to make the Quran's position felt. And how brave you are is how great you are, you know? Because if I walk around and people tell me that you must just take, you know, just accept the status quo, I will question that, because the status quo might not be what I want, you know. Anyway, if there's any question.
Assalamualaikum.
Bismillah. Alaikum salam, Mufa.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope everyone is all right. Nice topic. That is just playing in my mind now, that thinking that Anwar was talking about the different systems we have in this world. And I can't seem to think otherwise than all the madhabs that there is. Are those not a form of a system as well? That is the first question. And the second question is, without a madhab, can we be a Muslim only following Quran? Or is the madhab the sunnah in a way?
That's a fair question, Zai. You know, madhabs, no? A madhab is a way, is a particular perspective. And I believe in perspectives, but you know, there's an element of real that we cannot reduce to a perspective. So perspectives are fine. We all have perspectives. For me, the sky is blue. For you, the sky is black if you're living in a different part of the earth. So I can't claim that you have my perspective. So there are perspectives, and there's an area of madhab that I believe must exist. But there's also an area of madhab, or an area where madhab does not feature. That's just my own personal idea, is that, you know, there are not various perspectives on Allah. I mean, you know, there are not various perspectives on justice. And, you know, I believe when the Quran is clear, then there's no two perspectives, when the Quran is clear. But, you know, hadiths and human agreements and treaties are there for the purpose of perspectives. So we can have a perspective to drive on the left side of the road. And in England or in America, they can do it on the right-hand side of the road, because the Quran didn't say what side of the road you must drive with your car. You know, but the Quran will say that you must respect other people on the road. Don't harm people. So you know, I don't want us to go too deeply into the whole madhab issue, because I've discussed that a lot, but I'm not anti-madhab, but personally, I think there should be thousands of madhabs, not 4 or 6 or 8. There should be, you know, many ways of doing things. It's a free world. Anyway.
Where's the issue?
Bismillah.
Follow the Quran and Buddha.
Who's speaking?
Hello, can you hear me?
You can speak? Yes, I can hear. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. I just want to comment on the question that Adir asked. I think
Yes.
if I heard it correctly, he was basically asking what criteria do we use in order to identify leadership. I think that basically that was what he was asking. Am I right, Khadir?
He says yes.
Okay. So I think that is very clear in the Quran, the criterion for leadership. Leadership is by example, and leadership is not chosen. Leadership rises out of conviction and out of sacrifice and out of sincerity. I think there's two points that the Quran mentioned about that. One is fearlessness, and the other one, I think, is sincerity. So today you find in politics, people make a beautiful speech, and then suddenly he becomes prime minister. And then because of hasn't really done anything for the people, but because of his charisma, which they now see as something very important, he just rises for himself and for his friends and so on. The people that have really sacrificed in our struggle are not people that are in the government now. There are lots of them. If we really want to have a look and study, and you'll see there's quite a lot of people that were taken away around about the time that the new government was put together. I remember meeting a man by the name of Mose Mola, was a PAC member. But I just met that man once, but in that 3-4 hours that I was in his company, I was so mesmerized by that man's sincerity and his fearlessness that it forever stuck to me. That is the type of leadership that we were robbed of. And I would like to think that in our family and people that I associate with, we wouldn't be looking for people that have the gift of the gab to say nice words. And I would like to think that we have people that will give their lives for those that they represent, that they will put those that they represent before themselves. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, Hadir, but those are basically the things that we should look for in the people that we would like to see as leaders in our community, in our family, and so on. Shukran.
So, as Ghadir, does that respond to your question? MashaAllah, we have a nice big group, so I want to hear a bit more from other people. You know what? There's not one person doesn't have knowledge. We need to learn from you all here, please. Okay, please, whoever wants to go for it, go.
Kanwa, there's a question on the chat.
In the chat. Shucks, now I need to see quickly. Chat. Yes, chat. Okay, lovely. The chat says, I just wanted to ask why the Quran is written in the binary style as described. If it's already covered in the first part of the class, then please ignore. I joined late. Apologies. Okay, binary style. Yes. Look, already in the first week, we said that the Quran is a dialogical script or text. It is an unfolding dialogue, and often at times the Quran will say, and so Shaitan says this, and so and Allah replies that, or the Quran will say, and so Fir'aun said this, and so Musa said that, and then Fir'aun replied, and then Musa. So it is often in the form of a dialogue. And it is the style that the Quran uses. The Quran actually is not a book of imposing an idea, but the Quran is a book of enlightenment, of guidance. So if the Quran was like the government that wants to impose a certain thing on you, then it would just be released in a set of directives. Number 1, you must do this. Number 2, you must do that. Number 3. But it doesn't take that approach. It takes the Socratic, more or less a Socratic style where you are almost eased into the right understanding. You are given the wrong understand. You are given falsehood, and then you are given truth, and the two are being contrasted. Like, for example, Allah will say to you, look, if there was more than one Allah, you would have found the world in chaos. Because then there would be two almighties, and they would both be having their own rules. And they would both, the one would says, I want trees to go up, and the other one will say, I want trees to grow down. And then you would have chaos. Basically, in every aspect of the universe, there'll be chaos, because there would be two supreme laws. But the Quran then uses that as a beautiful illustration why there has to be one supreme Lord, because you can see the harmony. It's the product of one mind and one law. Leila, I wish somebody else will add to that. Please feel free, anyone. Also, what the Quran does is not romantic. It's not a romantic book. It does not tell you that here's good and here's evil. And you know what? You're going to get into this plain sailing boat and you're just going to promote good. Now, there's an element of struggle. There's an element of struggle, of effort, of strain. And the Quran makes that very clear, that there is the easy way. This way of the Quran is not necessarily the easy way. At times it will be easy, but at times it will be rough. And so it's not Leila, part of your question is, why does the Quran come in this binary? I think it is to prepare us for that we are not being put under this romantic notion that, all you have to do is make 50 times that, 20 times that, 50, do this salah, do that salah. It's just all the magic formulas, and then you go to Jannah. And then Allah says, do you think you will be left alone saying, Amanna, and that I believe in Allah and that you will not be tested? So I think the Quran needs to show you that, look here, there's actually good and there's evil. And you're going to have to face this challenge of evil, unfortunately. And this evil is going to be a massive challenge. It might cost you your life. But, it might cost you your wealth. But any other question? Yes, quickly. Anyone want to add to that? Oh, I see there's another message. Is that today's message? Auntie Timmy passed away. Inna lillahi rajiun. Oh, Auntie Timmy, that's jammer. So, any other thoughts, ideas? Bismillah. There's quite a few people here. I mean, we've got another 5 minutes or so. We can go another 5 minutes. Let us hear your thoughts. If it's off the topic, please feel free. We're not just, we have an open forum.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yes, please. Okay.
Okay, Uncle Anwar, I can read Arabic. I can't write Arabic. I don't understand Arabic, right? The Quran, how difficult is it to change the wording in it? How do we know that the Quran was preserved from that time, since the Nabi's time till now? Sometimes it does cross my mind when I do read Quran and I read the English. How do I know what is written there is exactly what was written in the Nabi's time? How difficult is it to change the wording here?
Kamil, can I say that the Quran itself, this states that inna nazalna zikr. We have revealed the Quran, and we will preserve it, protect it. But that is just one. That is the Quran itself states it, and that. But you have to be a Muslim, obviously, and a believer in the Quran to buy that proof. So what other proofs outside if you're not, and then the Quran actually offers a few other challenges. The Quran actually then offers humanity the chance to falsify a verse or to create Arabic that is as celebrated as this Arabic, and to keep the meaning there. So there are various websites where non-Muslim people have taken the challenge. They've written pieces of Quran, and there's beautiful verses. You can go there and see. There's a website where they accept. I think the website is called acceptingthequranchallenge.com. But if you look at those verses, they don't get actually, the meaning is out, or the Arabic. But to cut a long story short, Kamil, the Quran is not being disputed by anyone, the text of the Quran, because the oldest versions of the Quran go back. Right now, the oldest version is the Birmingham manuscript, which was discovered 2 years ago. And the Birmingham manuscript, it goes back. They've done carbon dating on the parchments, and those parchments date back to the time of the Prophet. So the actual parchments, it's written on the skin of some sort of sheep or goat, and those parchments are actually, the goat lived in the town of Napi, according to that's the Birmingham manuscript. It was a very great discovery 2 years ago. You can Google it, Birmingham manuscript. But then there's also the Sana'a manuscripts, which were discovered a bit early, I think in the 70s, when they tried to renovate a mosque in Yemen. They wanted to demolish the old minaret. And when they demolished the old minaret, they had to dig into the foundations below the minaret. And then they found about a few hundred Qurans lying. And those Qurans dated about 300 years after the Prophet. So the stack of Qurans, ancient. And needless to say, the Birmingham manuscript, as well as the Sana'a manuscripts, as well as some of the others which are sitting in Topkapi, and in Tashkent, there's a version of the Quran. And in Egypt, there's one which I myself visited. They go back, almost back, right all the way back to the time of the Prophet. So there's no discrepancy in the text. The text is in 100% agreement. And there's no, so they haven't yet discovered an ancient version of the Quran. And they go back earlier, right? The Birmingham is now, like goes back to the time of the Prophet. So, but look, I don't require those things as a proof, because as a person who accept the Quran, I look at the message, the meaning. You know what, Kamil, let me give you an example. I have a book here that was written in 1880. It's called The Great British Empire. And I have that book lying on my bookshelf, and it's the greatness of the British Empire. And when I read that book, that's only 100 and something years old. That book is only 140 years old. On every second page, it speaks about the backward nations of earth, and how the white men, how the Englishmen managed to conquer the Kaffirs, and how we managed to civilize the tribes and how we saved humanity. And so much drivel in that book, which is 140 years old, that they embarrassed. They probably be embarrassed to show anyone that book now. And that was like a prominent work written by even Darwin, Charles Darwin. A lot of the title of his book, The Origin of Species, nobody reads the whole title. The Origin of Species and the Prominence of the European Man over other primitive nations. That is the full title of his book. You know, such a great human being like Charles Darwin, stuff is outdated after 100. I'm not saying Darwin, everything he wrote was nonsense. Now you show me in the Quran where's an embarrassing passage. You know, show me where's a passage that says black people are stupid. Show me where's a passage that says that, dragons spit fire and, whatever nonsense. There's no nonsense. The book is just normal, common sense. It's a 1400-year-old book. So for me, Kamil, the proof is not in the Sana manuscript and the Birmingham manuscript and all those, but it is in reading it, and you can see that there's nothing that is trivial and nonsense in any of the text that says that, the Arab race is superior to all other races, or the Prophet has flown, flown on a donkey, or whatever. There's none of that. I mean, 1400 years ago, the West, we were believing in witches, and they were believing in the worst types of superstitions. I mean, the Quran could have talked about alchemy, which was a science until 500 years ago. Alchemy, how to make gold from chemicals, or how the stars affect. The Quran could have had that nonsense, astrology, that if these stars are in alignment, then you will be lucky, or none of that. For me, that is the proof, Kamil. I don't know if it's enough. Yeah.
Mafaka Anwar,
Yes.
but you mentioned earlier on, right, that when you read the Quran and you translate it, right? You translate it how you feel, what type of mode you are. You understand? So when I read the Quran and I read the English, right? Is that what I read of Yusuf Ali? Is that was that how he felt at that time? You know what? You understand?
I get your point now. I see your point now, Kamil. Look, but now we're talking translation, not the Arabic. The Arabic is unaltered, original. Look, if you're going to read the text as Anwar, and you read the text tomorrow as, somebody sitting in America, then the words will resonate in a different way, I think. And when I say this is my reading, I'm not saying I've got a reading that is different. I am making all sorts of effort to be faithful to what the Quran says. But Yusuf Ali, first of all, some of his English is so highfalutin that, I don't think if I show it to Amir, and that is the reason why I need to offer a more fresh, it's half of the time, it's Shakespearean. It's not accessible. The language itself, the English is an English that goes back to the 1930s, 1940, almost 100 years old, the English. And I often feel that the idiom, the way we speak now, just that conveys, I can use modern idiom to convey the meaning, maybe how the Arabic is delivered. And so it's not as if I'm seeing it different. No, absolutely not. However, there are some places where the Saudi Quran, the Mus'haf Medina, where they have blatantly certain meanings that they have changed. That I see mischief in that. But in terms of Yusuf Ali, no mischief, honest, good translation, but just I think the English sometimes it's a little bit tough to get into 1940s English, But I think Kamil, there's no, there could be an Afrikaans Quran. I think there is an Afrikaans Quran. So, you know what? Do yourself a favor, no? There's a website, Quran.com, something where it actually gives you Tanzil, where it gives you all the translations. So if you type in Surah Fatiha, it gives you 20 translations in English. And then you are able to then compare. And often what you'll find is that there's little nuanced differences in the different meanings. The Quran has many shades of meaning. It's not as if the Quran, when that we all agree on, that the Quran has shades of meaning. There are certain verses where you could draw two meanings out of the same verse. It's the wealth of the Quran. So in English, obviously, you have to choose one. You can't like put both meanings into the same English sentence. But yeah, Kamil, that is my response. Any other responses are welcome. Bismillah. Yeah, what I've especially focused on is the narrowing down of meanings. You know, Kamil, and this is, I'm not afraid to say this, that we have unfortunately suffered a situation. And last week I took the example of the word gay, where people have taken a particular word and attached the meaning, like Bani Israel. You know, you cannot automatically assume that the Bani Israel, which the Quran refers to, is now the Ashkenazi folk that have set up camp in Palestine. You know, those people who came out of Poland and Germany, you know, people with blue eyes and blonde hair, and they're not Bani Israel. And yet the Quranic term, because Israel, as the name Israel, that place was never called Israel. There's no place in his time in history. It was called Judea. And there was a time when certain part of that land was called Israel. But you cannot make the assumption now that the Bani Israel are Netanyahu and his bunch of criminals, thugs that's there. That is not, we cannot make the assumption that the Quran, when it speaks about Bani Israel, it is now Netanyahu and so on. I think Netanyahu and his bunch of thugs, they're not even Jewish, they're Satanists. I wouldn't, they're atheists, you know, the Zionists are atheists. Go and study the origins of the Zionist movement in the 1800s. They were not actually believers in Judaism, they were atheists. So how can they be Bani Israel? So I'm saying to you, Kamil, we have to correct, you know, sometimes terminology is, you know, as they say, there's the semantics that come in. We have semantic differences, the semantics, who is the Jews? Similarly, I question the meaning of the word salah, that it is reduced to a ritual. I don't believe Allah will send you to hell forever for not doing a ritual, but He will send you to hell if you did not come to this earth and establish an order and a system of adherence, which includes daily prayers, but which actually means a general system of adherence and order and fraternity. I think we're going to wind up. There's no other questions.
I think there's one in the chat.
Okay. Okay. When will this recording be available? Is that it?
Yes.
Yes. Inshallah, we will try and have it. There's actually two others. Will be maybe the next day or two. I'll ask. Hassan was just trimming it a bit. So then we'll trim this one also. Okay, inshallah, what we'll do is next week, we're going to do the last few verses. Next week, the list is, there's a few verses, the end of Surah Baqarah. Then I think we will rethink the whole format. I'm very open to suggestions. I'd love to continue with Friday's session, but maybe we'll try and get guest speakers. Maybe we can invite other people also to speak. Maybe you can recommend because it's a decent sized audience. I mean, I wasn't going to invite other speakers if there were 4 people, but now there's 20 people here now. I think it's a decent, and here with us there's already a few people, more than like 1. So maybe we'll get some overseas people also to be part of the discussion. I mean, there's no limitations on Zoom. If there's no further questions, then all I can say is may Allah grant health to those who are not well. And hopefully they're using the right medicine, like ivermectin and whatever else is working, vitamin D, zinc, steaming for the COVID. But in the end, Allah is the one that brings healing. So we ask Allah to grant them all healing, and those all other people, loved ones of us that are sick. Inshallah, we're gonna sign off. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Takbir, Allahu Akbar.